One of our weapons learned how to impersonate us. Sunlight crept through the apartment blinds as I stared at my bedroom ceiling. I wasn't asleep anymore. I just wasn't emotionally prepared to open the door, because somewhere beyond it was an angel who had accidentally asked me out. Nope, absolutely not. Maybe I dreamed it. Maybe I'd inhaled something toxic during yesterday's retrieval. Maybe I'd finally lost my mind. I stared at the ceiling for another minute before muttering, "Please tell me I imagined that." Silence. The ceiling refused to answer. With a defeated sigh, I cracked open my bedroom door. The apartment was quiet. Good. Maybe he'd gone back to headquarters. Maybe he'd forgotten the entire conversation. Maybe.
Good morning.
I jumped so hard I nearly slammed my head into the doorframe. Angelo looked up from the couch, sitting exactly where I'd left him the night before, quietly reading a book. Morning sunlight spilled through the window behind him, giving him the unfair advantage of looking exactly like what he was, an angel. Morning, Angelo.
Did you sleep well?
Sure. He studied me for a moment.
Your pupils are dilated.
It's the lighting.
Your heartbeat is also elevated.
Coffee.
I have not yet handed you the coffee.
Anticipation.
I see.
The silence that followed was painful. I walked into the kitchen, determined to avoid eye contact for the rest of my natural lifespan. Thankfully, the coffee pot had just finished brewing. I reached for my favorite mug, only for another hand to reach for it at the same time. Our fingers brushed. I pulled mine back like I'd touched a live wire. Sorry.
There is no need to apologize.
Right. He handed me the mug. Thank you.
You are welcome.
I poured myself enough coffee to tranquilize a horse, while Angelo watched quietly as he stood beside me. I wanted headquarters to call. I wanted a god to escape. I wanted reality itself to collapse. Anything. Anything except this. The coffee machine hummed between us until Angelo finally broke the silence.
I have reflected upon yesterday's conversation.
I nearly dropped the mug. You have?
Yes,
Could we maybe... I pointed vaguely toward the ceiling. Never reflect on it again? He tilted his head.
why?
Because it's embarrassing.
I see.
Another pause.
I have another question.
Of course you do.
When humans begin
He stopped, clearly searching for the correct word.
dating,
I closed my eyes. Angelo?
one source stated that presenting flowers is customary.
I said nothing.
Another recommended presenting a deceased animal.
Still nothing.
A third suggested consuming large quantities of cheese together.
I pinched the bridge of my nose. That one's probably Wisconsin. I was about to explain why dead rats were not considered romantic when... Bzz, my phone vibrated. Jacob. I answered immediately. Jacob? We have a problem. His voice was tighter than I'd ever heard it. We have a breach. Every trace of embarrassment evaporated. Good morning to you too. There was a brief silence before Jacob answered. The Amazon god is dead. The mug slipped from my hand and exploded against the kitchen floor. What? We were out the door in less than 5 minutes. The spilled coffee could wait. By the time we reached headquarters, the atmosphere felt wrong. The usual noise was gone. No conversations, no arguments, no footsteps beyond what was absolutely necessary. Every officer seemed to glance over their shoulder before walking away, like they were afraid of what might be watching. Jacob was already waiting outside the boardroom, along with the rest of the board. Stonehill looked as reptilian as ever, his yellow eyes darting around the corridor, while Madame Lenny appeared more exhausted than I'd ever seen her. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes, and she hadn't even bothered hiding them. Without a word, we entered the room, and the doors sealed behind us. Jacob activated the holographic projector. The Amazon god was attacked at approximately 5 this morning. A recording flickered into existence above the table, showing the entrance to the containment chamber. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, Stonehill walked into the frame. The room immediately erupted into whispers. The recording ended moments later, and Jacob turned towards Stonehill. Can you explain this? Stonehill's eyes widened. What? You were the last person seen entering the Amazon god's containment zone. That's impossible. He looked around the room. I wasn't anywhere near the containment wing. Several board members exchanged suspicious glances. You expect us to believe that? I don't care what you believe, Stonehill snapped. I wasn't there. Madame Lenny finally spoke. He is telling the truth. Every eye turned toward her. Stonehill was attending a cost commissioning meeting with our sponsors at the time of the attack. Another board member nodded. I can confirm that. I was present. The whispers died almost instantly. Jacob frowned. Then who entered the containment chamber? Silence settled over the room. No one had an answer. Then Angelo spoke.
It was Stonehill.
Several heads turned toward him. Stonehill threw up his hands. Huh? No. Angelo continued before he could finish.
But not this Stonehill.
The room went deathly silent. Angelo stared at the frozen image of Stonehill on the hologram.
If what I have seen is correct, then one of the angelic weapons has been removed.
No one spoke.
It most likely occurred during Sean's assault.
His gaze never left the recording.
Sean created sufficient chaos for the weapon to replace itself with an imitation before I transferred the angelic weapons from C.S.P's containment to my own.
A chill ran down my spine. An imitation? Angelo nodded once.
So that I would not detect its absence.
The silence that followed was somehow worse than the revelation itself. Jacob stared at him. So you're telling me? His eyes shifted toward the frozen image of Stonehill suspended above the table. Someone is using that weapon to become Stonehill? Angelo slowly shook his head.
No. It requires no wielder. Every angelic weapon was forged from my power and the soul of a slain god. The one that was removed was forged from the soul of the God of Imitation.
His gaze remained fixed on the hologram.
It acts alone because that is what I forged it to do. It assumed Stonehill's form Because deception is the most efficient path to its purpose.
Jacob frowned. Its purpose? Angelo's expression didn't change.
To kill gods.
The boardroom went completely silent. No one looked at the hologram anymore. Instead, everyone started looking at each other. If it could become Stonehill, who else could it become? The thought hung over the room like a storm cloud. Madame Lenny was the first to break the silence. Headquarters is now under immediate lockdown. No one argued. No personnel are to leave without my authorization. Every entrance and exit is to be sealed, effective immediately. I am dispatching every retrieval team to search for the missing angelic weapon. Her normally composed expression hardened. I don't care what containment assignment they're currently on. Recall them. Every available operative is now assigned to this mission. Everyone left the boardroom as the lockdown began. Sirens echoed through headquarters as blast doors sealed and retrieval teams flooded every hallway. Employees were stopped, questioned, scanned, and verified. 2 hours passed. Nothing. No duplicate, no unexplained personnel, no trace of the weapon. It was gone. Jacob slammed another report onto the conference table. Nothing. Another team leader shook his head. We've searched every floor twice. Madame Lenny looked toward Angelo. What are we missing? Angelo didn't answer. He stood perfectly still, his eyes unfocused, as though he were replaying every moment since Sean had breached Wing 7. Then he spoke.
I know where it is going.
Every head turned toward him. It was the first time I had ever heard uncertainty in his voice. Angelo? Madame Lenny frowned. What is it? Angelo remained silent for a long moment before finally speaking.
Before I entrusted the angelic weapons to humanity, the weapon of imitation remained beneath that temple, with the others.
The room went still. Angelo looked down.
It knows every passage, every chamber, and where the remaining weapons rest.
I felt my stomach tighten. Then, why didn't it go the moment it escaped? Angelo's eyes remained fixed on the table.
Because I would have stopped it.
The realization hit me. It needed a distraction. Jacob's expression hardened. The Amazon god. Angelo nodded.
The Amazon god was never its objective. Creating a distraction was.
His voice remained calm, but the weight behind his words made the room feel colder.
It knew the death of a god would draw every retrieval team, and it knew I would follow. It only needed a few hours, enough time to reach the temple before I understood its true objective.
The room fell silent. Jacob finally broke it. Why return? Angelo answered without hesitation.
Because the only weapons capable of killing an angel remain hidden beneath that temple.
No one spoke.
The purpose I forged into every angelic weapon is absolute.
His eyes lifted.
Kill gods.
A pause.
It cannot freely fulfill that purpose. while I exist.
The realization slowly settled over everyone.
So it will arm itself and then remove the only obstacle preventing it from fulfilling its purpose.
Jacob's face slowly drained of color. Which is you? Angelo said nothing. He simply nodded. Madame Lenny broke the silence. Nayeri. I looked up. You'll depart immediately. She turned toward Jacob. You'll accompany Team 7 and assume operational command if the situation escalates. Jacob nodded once, already on it. Madame Lenny's gaze swept across the room. I am authorizing the deployment of 400 Security Division personnel to reinforce the temple. Several board members exchanged uneasy glances. One finally spoke. Shouldn't we follow the new protocol? Madame Lenny answered without hesitation. No. The new protocol only functions while Angelo remains with us. She looked toward Angelo. But if Angelo's life is in danger, her expression hardened. We revert to the old protocol. Unlike me, Jacob didn't look surprised. Makes sense. He folded his arms. The new protocol only works if Angelo is alive. No one argued. Madame Lenny slowly nodded. Exactly. Then she looked directly at Angelo. If Angelo falls. She let the sentence die, and no one asked her to finish it. No one needed to. The atmosphere in the room changed. Until now, our priority had been stopping the weapon of imitation. Now, it was making sure it never reached Angelo. Jeff pushed the transport aircraft harder than I'd ever seen. For someone who constantly complained about flying missions, he handled a military transport like it was a Formula One car. The trip should have taken nearly 2 hours, but we made it in just over 1. The island came into view through the cockpit window. It was nothing more than a jagged mass of rocks, surrounded by violent waves, hundreds of miles from the nearest shipping route. No towns, no docks, no signs of civilization. Just an endless ocean. I can see why you chose this place, I muttered. Angelo remained silent. The island had been forgotten by the rest of the world. Even satellites would have struggled to distinguish it from the countless barren rocks scattered across the sea. It was the perfect place to hide the most dangerous weapons in existence. Then, the clouds parted. An ancient temple emerged from the center of the island. Massive marble columns stretched toward the sky, their surfaces scarred by thousands of years of wind and rain. Cracks split the stone, vines crawled over broken statues, and entire sections had collapsed into piles of weathered rubble. The temple doors groaned open, and a wave of cold air rolled out from the darkness. Not stale, not damp, cold, as though the sun itself refused to enter. 400 Security Division officers poured inside, rifles raised, while retrieval teams spread through the entrance hall. Their flashlights swept across towering marble columns and shattered statues whose faces had long since been worn away by time. The interior was impossibly large. The temple should have ended after a few hundred feet, but instead, the corridors continued. Left, right, down, Each hallway branched into 3 more. Every intersection looked identical, and every corridor seemed to lead into another corridor. "This isn't possible," one of the engineers muttered.
It isn't.
Angelo replied.
It was never designed for humans.
He turned and started walking.
Follow me. I forged this place into a labyrinth.
He glanced into the endless corridors.
So only I know the path.
Angelo never hesitated. Every turn, every staircase, every hidden passage, he remembered them all. Nearly 30 minutes later, he stopped before a pair of enormous bronze doors, each standing nearly 30 feet tall. There were no handles, only a single handprint carved into the center. Angelo pressed his palm against it. The entire temple shuddered. Ancient gears groaned somewhere beneath our feet as the doors slowly parted. A freezing wind rushed out. Beyond them lay a chamber so vast, our flashlights couldn't reach the opposite wall. Rows upon rows of stone pedestals stretched into the darkness, and upon each rested an angelic weapon. Swords, spears, chains, bows, weapons whose very presence made the air feel heavier. Hundreds of them. None had been touched. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. They're still here. Jacob lowered his rifle. So it never made it. For the first time since we arrived, someone smiled. Angelo didn't. His eyes swept across the chamber once, then twice, then a third time.
Something is wrong.
Every smile vanished. What? Angelo continued scanning the rows of angelic weapons before stopping. He pointed toward a sword resting on the far left pedestal.
That one.
I frowned. What about it?
It's angled differently than when I left it.
My stomach dropped. What? Before anyone could react, the entire temple trembled. A deafening groan rolled through the chamber. Then, stone scraped against stone. The walls began to move. Not crumble, move. Entire corridors shifted sideways. Doorways disappeared. New passages opened where solid walls had stood only seconds before. The labyrinth was rearranging itself. "Fall back!" Jacob shouted. The security division scattered as towering slabs of marble thundered through the chamber. One squad vanished behind a moving wall. Another hallway simply disappeared. My eyes widened. "Angelo!" A wall the size of a building raced toward me. I froze. There wasn't enough time. A hand seized my wrist. The world lurched as Angelo yanked me backward with impossible strength. The wall slammed through the spot where I'd been standing less than a second earlier. The impact shook the entire temple and dust erupted into the air. I crashed onto the stone floor. Ow! Angelo immediately pulled me back to my feet.
Are you injured?
Before I could answer, another section of the labyrinth shifted. The passage leading back to Jacob vanished beneath a wall of solid marble. "Nayeri!" Jacob shouted. His voice echoed faintly from somewhere beyond the stone. "We're over here!" I yelled. No response. Another wall slid into place. Then another. The grinding slowly faded. Silence returned. I stared at the towering wall separating us. The wall stretched from floor to ceiling, with no cracks, no doorway, nothing that suggested there was any way through. Jacob's voice came through the stone. "Can anyone hear me?" Angelo rested a hand against the wall, but his expression darkened almost immediately.
The labyrinth has changed.
Some stories end when the words stop. Others don't end at all. If you enjoyed this story, there are many more waiting in the dark. Until next time.